This familiar vehicle has gone through change after change, improvement after improvement. But one thing remains the same. It's still a Jeep. It's how we do things at Chrysler Corporation. It's how we build great cars and great trucks.
There's many a moment and many a day, many a reason, but only one way.
There's only one way to get 10% off the entire store, Sunday and Monday at Sears. And that's with your Sears card. Take 10% off everything, even sale prices, every time you use your card.
The one card for the many sides of Sears.
Bonjour.
No matter how you do business,
Right this way.
it makes sense to rent from Dollar.
Gentlemen, I have prepared for your comfort.
Dollar is right at the airport with low rates. So you can always afford to entertain your clients in style. Dollar Rent-A-Car. Dollar. Makes sense.
It's the harshest winter in memory. Severe conditions for humans, worse for the animals.
They're starving.
Winter's killing fields. The pictures and story Monday on the CBS Evening News.
Seldom, if ever, in history have winners been as generous towards losers as the new leaders of South Africa have been towards the men who inflicted apartheid on them. Men like Dirk Coetzee, a former captain in the regime's secret security police. Certainly one of the most racist and repressive of our time. But when Nelson Mandela and his colleagues overthrew that system, anyone who expected retribution or war crimes trials was disappointed. Instead, the new democratically elected government set up a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And what it's about is forgiving. Forgiving even Dirk Coetzee, who's been telling the commission harrowing tales about how he and his men dealt with blacks who opposed apartheid.
Knockout drops was administered, and as soon as the guy fell over, he was shot at point blank.
Do you remember what went through your mind when you watch a 23-year-old kid drop over and then get shot in the head?
It was a job that had to be done. It was the enemy, one of the enemy that had to be taken out and had to be dealt with. And someone had to do the job, and we were there to do the job.
Or was it just another day's work?
Another day's work, basically, yes.
Say, so help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you, Nance.
That's the same story Coetzee told the commission. In 9 months of hearings, the revelations of government-sanctioned mass murders and atrocities have shocked even the people who thought they knew what apartheid was all about.
They had pulled all his hair out. Then they pulled his tongue out. Then they went about cutting his fingers off.
They attached electrodes to my private parts. Those electric shocks tore my private parts to pieces.
The mechanics of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission are revolutionary and astonishing. Here's how it works. Victims tell their stories. Stories of atrocities which were literally unspeakable under the old regime. Then the perpetrators get a chance to own up to their crimes and by doing so, become eligible for amnesty. All they have to do is tell the truth. They don't even have to say they're sorry. No apologies, no remorse, and no justice. Charity Kandila came before the commission to speak of her son, her late son, a 23-year-old law student. He just disappeared one day, and for 9 years she heard nothing about him. Then Dirk Coetzee spoke out because he was there when the boy was tortured and shot. He was there when they did what they'd done many times before. To destroy the evidence, they dragged the body to a fire.
And it is eventually set alight, and the remains has got to be turned over frequently during the night, 7 to 9 hours, until there was no chunks left the next morning.
7 to 9 hours to burn a body. And what do you do, sit around and chat during that time?
We were sitting around having a barbecue and drinking.
And every once in a while somebody would get up and turn the body around?
That's correct, yes.
Was it just like an ordinary barbecue, or did the presence of a dead man whose body was being turned around so it would be turned into ashes, did the presence of this dead man on a fire next to you affect the atmosphere of the evening?
Not at all. Not at all.
You could have been at home with a few buddies in your back.
Right down, that's correct, yeah.
In the 1980s, Dirk Coetzee was the manager of what appeared to be a farm just outside Pretoria. It's called Vlakplaas, and it was, in fact, the top-secret headquarters of the regime's death squads. There's never been a farm anything like it, anywhere in the world. It's green, quiet, and lovely.
Green, quiet, and lovely. One would never say atrocities like what went on could have happened in this nice spot, is it?
What went on here?
Well, murders were planned from here, execution of activists, opponents of the government, apartheid government, stealing of vehicles, blowing up of buildings, raids into neighboring countries.
Here. Dirk Coetzee was no rogue cop. He was running hit teams which were organized and sanctioned by the highest echelons of the South African regime. And that's all he has to prove to become eligible for amnesty, that the murders had a political motivation. What you were growing on the farm were atrocities.
It was only atrocities, nothing else.
You guys were playing God.
We were God.
Marker, do you solemnly swear that
But their godhood has been lifted by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which is headed by Nobel laureate Archbishop Desmond Tutu. He's conducting it more as a confessor than an inquisitor, and sometimes the testimony has proven to be even more than he can bear. But he insists the process is not only necessary, but even-handed. White people who suffered at the hands of Nelson Mandela's movement, the ANC, are also invited to testify.
Do you know, Mr. Chairman, what it's like to pick up some of your 8-year-old son's brain and to have to bury it?
And the black guerrillas responsible for these acts are invited to apply for amnesty. So right now you sense a national catharsis.
It's happening. It's not easy to open wounds. It's very painful. But if you don't want them to fester, you must open them and cleanse them and then pour balm on them.
Archbishop, you are a man of the cloth.
Thank you for reminding me, yes.
Don't you think that granting a murderer amnesty, which is a form of forgiveness,
yeah,
even if he doesn't repent, don't you think this is carrying Christianity a bit too far?
Christianity has always been a religion that takes risks. We are saying people who have committed horrendous acts, demonic acts, monstrous acts, are not monsters, are not demons. They remain human beings. We don't say that because you are a perpetrator, therefore you remain a perpetrator forever. We say that there is a possibility of changing.
Try that one on Charity Kandila, the mother of the boy who was killed and burned by Coetzee.
Looks almost certain that Dirk Coetzee will be getting amnesty from your government.
I suspect so.
What do you think about that?
Imagine some people are in jail for stealing the chocolate. And now men who have committed such crimes will be given amnesty. I mean, that is ridiculous, unbelievable.
Churchill Makenge is so unwilling to forgive Dirk Coetzee that he challenged the Commission's power to do so in the highest court in the land. Makenge's brother Griffiths, a prominent anti-apartheid lawyer, was killed, stabbed 45 times by Coetzee's men in 1981. Griffiths' wife Victoria, another activist, was shot dead 4 years later. A few weeks ago, after a memorial service, they were laid to rest properly, serenaded by the voices of the struggle. It was Coetzee's confession which finally revealed to the Makenge family how Griffiths died, and Coetzee came to the commission to offer what he called a pathetic apology for his murders, saying he feels genuinely repentant. But that doesn't satisfy Churchill Makenge. He doesn't want truth and reconciliation. He wants truth and consequences.
And because of the Truth Commission, which Archbishop Tutu heads, justice is not being done.
It's not being done. So that's why I feel Coetzee deserves to hang. You know.
He deserves to hang.
To hang. If there's one mistake that was ever made by this government, was abolishing hanging. He deserves to hang.
Churchill Makenge thinks he should hang. Can you understand where he's coming from?
I don't blame him for that. Probably I would have had exactly the same outlook.
Why should Dirk Coetzee get amnesty? Does he deserve it?
It depends on from what side you argue about it, because it's not only myself. There's thousands of us.
Thousands?
Yes, thousands, and still in the police force up till this day, occupying senior positions in the police. So if you don't give Dirk amnesty and hanging, hang them all.
Driven by a fear of prosecution, those thousands are pouring forth now, rushing into law offices to file amnesty applications. Not only captains like Coetzee, but young foot soldiers with that age-old defense. They were just obeying orders.
I didn't lie in my bed one night and decide, oh, tomorrow I'm going to start killing activists. No, the political leaders sanctioned this stuff, and I was just a man on the ground.
A man on the ground like Paul Van Vuren, who agreed to be interviewed in the presence of his lawyer, Willem Brits.
How many people did you kill?
I can't remember the exact amount, but it's quite a lot.
10, 20, 100, 200?
Roundabout. Roundabout between 20 and 40.
Between 20 and 40 people.
Yeah.
But there was more. Next came one of the darkest secrets of the dirty war. Van Vuren told us the police killed blacks in ways to make it look like the murders were committed not by the hit squads, but by black revolutionaries of the ANC. That meant bombs, electrocutions, and necklacing. That's putting a burning tire around a victim's neck.
Sometimes we use the landmine to blow people up, and sometimes we use a necklace.
He never used a necklace.
No, we did once.
No. Okay. Yeah, but that's just, sorry, but that was just for a body. To get rid. The guy was already dead when they put a tie around him. That was the normal way of the ANC.
And he's saying he did a necklacing, and you're saying that the guy was dead before he was necklaced.
No, we strangled the guy before he was dead. We strangled him to death, and then we put it so it looked like the ANC killed their own people.
Paul Van Vuren is not appearing before the commission to express a remorse he doesn't feel, but simply to save his skin. Still, he feels victimized by the commission. So do most members of the security establishment, from the privates all the way to General Constant Viljoen, former chief of the South African Defense Forces. He insists he was serving God and country and calls the commission a witch hunt.
It is clear to me that this is a way of applying the legislation of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission towards vilifying a group of people such as my people.
The war was won by the ANC. And instead of putting you on trial and shooting everyone who was in uniform or everyone who was anywhere close to a military action or to an atrocity, they're offering you amnesty, and yet you're calling it a witch hunt.
No, it is a witch hunt.
A witch hunt. That's how they see it. And that's why you see very few white faces in any of the hearings. That's why many whites dismiss the whole business contemptuously as the Kleenex Commission.
I truly feel the Truth Commission should be awarded the Granny Award for the greatest comedy of the year, and a total waste of money.
That's also why Archbishop Tutu spends much of his time on the air trying to convince these whites simply to listen.
I don't think we want to make any apology if white people in this country are alienated by it. Tough luck, I think. We are hoping that white people will, when they hear these stories, say, isn't it incredible? Aren't we lucky that black people are not wanting to treat us as we treated them? I'm saying, white people, please, can you hear the generosity that is being offered you? Can you hear our people saying, despite the agony that you have caused us, we want to be friends with you?
In recent weeks, the Truth Commission has dug up deeply buried secrets of how some of South Africa's most illustrious anti-apartheid activists were assassinated by agents of the regime. And in coming months, the Commission's expected to reveal that covert campaigns which led to murders and massacres were known and in some cases authorized by former Presidents P.W. Botha and F.W. de Klerk.
Kellogg's Corn Flakes presents 1996 NASCAR champion Terry Labonte.
You won't get that checkered flag unless you get off to a great start.
Like starting the day with the simple goodness of Kellogg's Corn Flakes.
Of course, a great finish doesn't hurt either.
Go with a winner, Kellogg's Corn Flakes.
A woman in your condition should stay put.
I don't think so. Today's moms are approaching the family way, in really with it ways. And they register for baby gifts with Lullaby Club at Target. They belly up to the kiosk, then scan in anything the little genius will ever need. Sleepers, strollers, even toys. So, what do you think?
It's great. It kind of brings out the kid in me.
Hopefully not right here. Lullaby Club only at Target, because today's expectant mothers expect more.
When we gave drivers of the Mercury Villager a smooth car-like ride, we didn't forget about the passengers' comfort. We gave them independent heating, air conditioning, and separate audio controls, along with 4 captain's chairs and an innovative sliding rear seat, all giving further proof that Mercury Villager's back seats don't take a back seat to anyone.
It's too bad we don't have another name for high cholesterol. If it sounded as ugly as what it does to you, you'd pick up the phone right now and find out about treatment plans that could lower your cholesterol, reduce your risk of a heart attack, even save your life. Call 1-800-51-MERC for your free booklet and talk with your doctor, because no matter what you call it, you can do something about it.
Kellogg's Corn Flakes presents 1996 NASCAR champion Terry Labonte.
You won't get that checkered flag unless you get off to a great start.
Like starting the day with the simple goodness of Kellogg's Corn Flakes.
Of course, a great finish doesn't hurt either.
Go with a winner, Kellogg's Corn Flakes.
What could an angel have done to cost her her wings?
As of this moment, she is officially suspended.
Jasmine Guy and Cloris Leachman, all new Touched by an Angel, tonight after 60 Minutes.
You remember Oklahoma City? Little kids got killed. Is that what you want?
They are the ultimate protectors of the U.S. Constitution.
Transporting a minor across state lines for immoral purposes.
And this is this season's most riveting drama.
You're under arrest!
From the creator of Law & Order, Feds premieres CBS March 5th.
There's hardly anybody in America who hasn't read a Stephen King novel or seen a Stephen King movie. Let's face it, he's the world's best-selling novelist, the most successful horror writer in history. Even among entertainers, he's the 12th highest paid in the country, earning more than $30 million in a single year. And that's all because his mind works this way. A man screams,
and this rat jumps into his mouth and gets halfway down his throat. And if you can imagine, okay, not just the taste of it and the rear legs sort of kicking in air, but the feel of the whiskers way back in your throat as it sort of gobbles away at your soft palate.
you know what? I'm completely grossed out. You've accomplished...
I'm sorry.
No, you're not. That's what you wanted to do. Yes.
No, I'm not sorry.
Have you ever gone to a psychiatrist?
No. No, I've never gone to a psychiatrist because I feel like what you do at a psychiatrist is you pay $75, $90 an hour to get rid of your fears, whereas if I write them down. People pay me. It's good.
Since 1974, people have paid good money for 32 novels, 5 collections of short stories, 9 screenplays, and 1 nonfiction study of horror. Except for his birthday, the 4th of July, and Christmas, King writes for at least 4 hours every day.
The ideas come and they have to be let out. That's all. They just have to be let out.
All that stands between those ideas and the rest of the world are these wrought iron gates. King can afford to live anywhere, but the hometown of horror is Bangor, Maine.
No, this is not happening. This is not happening.
Bring me the ball.
A vicious canine beast also lives here.
Oh, he stole the ball.
In Stephen King's world, Welsh corgis play basketball, and St. Bernards become demons, as in the movie Cujo. He wants to scare us. But what scares him?
Everything that scares you, everything that scares anybody, that's part of the reason for,
for
my
instance,
success.
Is it true, or is this the kind of part of your humor to tell us that you sleep with a nightlight?
So what if it is true? It's not hurting anybody. I tend to keep a nightlight on, but like anybody else, particularly if you're in a strange place, you don't want to stub your toe if you have to go to the bathroom
It's
in the
not
night.
like anybody else. Trust me.
No, it's like anybody else, or else I wouldn't be as successful as I am.
Is this story that he sleeps with a nightlight?
No, it's not true.
Apocryphal? It's
No,
not true.
No.
Tabitha King is certain because she and her husband Stephen have been married for 26 years.
There's a lot of mythologizing.
Yeah, but he created the myth.
encourages it. Yes, he does. He does. He encourages it.
Tabby keeps the monsters away, so when I'm around. That's true. Over the years, you have kept a lot of monsters away.
They met and dated at the University of Maine at Orono. Tabitha is also a writer whose 7 novels take place in Maine and concern the war between the sexes. They have raised 3 children. They understand each other.
Steve, we're here in a Chinese restaurant. What if this were a Stephen King place?
Well, actually,
we know, don't we?
Yeah,
we know.
because I wrote a
The
scene.
fortune cookies would bleed.
Right, and eyeballs would come out of them, and flies and deformed. I wrote the Chinese restaurant scene right in it.
It's been done, yeah. I don't find what he writes weird, and I don't find his characters weird, okay? I think one of his tremendous appeals to people is that he puts you in a world that you recognize among people that you know. And then if bizarre things happen to them, well, the world is a very strange place.
When you were a kid,
Let's stop right here.
This coming from?
Let's stop right here and just say, whenever an interviewer says, so, when you were a kid, what they're doing is basically saying, what screwed you up so bad that you're doing what you're doing now? Nothing happened. I didn't used to light fires when I was a kid. Anything like that.
Did you light fires when you were a kid?
No, I didn't. Really, I didn't.
But he did keep a scrapbook about Charlie Starkweather, a serial killer in Nebraska in the 1950s.
And it disturbed my mother.
I wonder
She said-
why.
And I said to my mother, I'm studying his face so I'll know it if I see it and know to get out of that person's way. That's the stranger, that's the other. And you could see it in his eyes to a degree. There was something gone in there. But I also understood that that was in me, and it was in a lot of people.
King says that over the years he has found ways to deal with what he calls his antisocial impulses. Since 1992, Stephen King has performed with the Rock Bottom Remainders, primarily a group of writers like Amy Tan and Dave Barry, who sing, sort of. He also loses himself in baseball. He even built a $1 million Little League ballpark behind the house, affectionately known as the Field of Screams.
Good job. Goose it, Leslie.
And he loves his Harley.
It's got 2 speeds, you know. It's got stopped and gone.
You're kind of a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. You kind of got arrested back there. What age are you, do you think, back there?
I don't know. If I had to pick an age, I'd say probably a lot of me is 19.
Hey!
Did you ever seriously wonder about your sanity?
As a kid, I worried about my sanity a lot.
I think he worries about it excessively much.
More than you?
Yeah, a lot more than I do. There's a movie called The Snake Pit that he apparently watched when he was a child. In that movie, a woman goes crazy. She is insane, and I think it may have infected him with a belief that you can go insane quite easily.
King was born in Portland, Maine in 1947. He remembers his childhood as being normal, if you consider his father's behavior normal.
He just left. I was 2, and my brother David was 4, and he told my mother one night, he said, Ruth, I'm going to go out and get a pack of cigarettes. And that was the last she ever saw of him.
You never, ever heard from him again?
Never heard from him again.
Did you ever try to find him?
No, I really never did. I've thought about it from time to time.
Do you hate him?
No, I don't hate him. Maybe if I had him around now and he wasn't really just totally decrepit, I'd kick his ass for him a couple of times.
At the age of 12, King began submitting stories to publishers, but he received rejection slips until college, when he earned a few extra dollars by writing for gentlemen's magazines like Dude and Swank. After he and Tabitha married, they lived in a rented trailer. She worked at Dunkin' Donuts, he at a laundry. But he kept writing, and one Sunday morning in 1973, his editor called. Paperback rights for Carrie went for $400,000. And he said to himself,
I have to get my wife a present. The only thing I found open was the Rexall drugstore, so I bought her a hairdryer.
Hairdryer. Did we get her something on Monday?
Oh. We got her the news that we were going to retire and become full-time writers.
Today, the Kings have enough money to rebuild the library in Bangor. He says he has always loved to read.
Do you like Jane Austen?
I've never read a Jane Austen novel in my life. Seen a couple of the movies. Ah, you don't put that on the air.
Tolstoy. Did you have...
I've never read Tolstoy.
You've never read Jane Austen or Tolstoy?
Never read Jane Austen or Tolstoy.
The greatest novelist.
I've read most of what Dean Koontz has written, though.
Later, he remembered that he had read Tolstoy's Anna Karenina.
Here you are, one of the best-selling authors in all of history, and the critics can't find much that they like in your work. Does this hurt?
Well, it does hurt, and it's very hard to defend against, because any writer who sits where I'm sitting now and rebuts the critics looks like a pontificating fool, and I can't do that.
Here's your own quote. I'm the literary equivalent of a Big Mac and fries. Now, that's not
right.
Shakespeare.
I did say that. I did say that, and I stand by it. All I can say is, and this is in response to the critics who've often said that my work is awkward and sometimes a little bit painful. I know it. I'm doing the best that I can with what I've got.
But some readers have taken the worst from King.
Did you ever worry, for instance, that somebody's going to go out and do something that is suggested in one of your books?
Well, people have.
The armed teenager may have been acting out the scenario to the Stephen King novel Rage, when he stalked into a high school classroom and took 11 classmates hostage.
If there's anything that I regret in my career, it's publishing the novel Rage. It's a story about a kid who's very severely disturbed and brings a gun to school, kills his teacher, and holds his class hostage over the course of the day. My view when this comes up is that most people who commit crimes of that nature are already so disturbed that if they didn't do it one way, they would do it another way. It was evil.
This is King recording the audiobook of his current bestseller, Desperation, in which evil nearly triumphs until a small boy prays real hard.
He had found God, that was all, and God had found him.
Are you religious?
I'm not conventionally religious in the sense that I don't go to church. Do I believe in God? Yes. Do I believe in a personal God? Yes.
You wear a medal.
Yeah.
What is it, a religious medal?
It's Mary.
Oh, it is.
Mother of Jesus, and I've worn it for a long time.
Why do you wear the medal?
It feels comforting. I like the way she has her hands out like this, as if to say, you're all right. I accept you for what you are.
The medal also gives King a sense of security. He needs it.
I'm your #1 fan.
In Misery, King imagines what might have happened to an author if his #1 fan held him prisoner. You have people who camp out in front of your house.
Yes, and we had a guy come through a window.
What happened?
He came in the window and he said, I have a bomb and I'm going to kill you. And I said, oh. I went out the door, nearest door in my pajamas.
The bomb turned out to be a collection of pencil erasers and unwound paper clips.
But he read Stephen King. He knew that this was Stephen King's house. He came directly to it.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me nervous. I worry about his security, the possibility that someone might try to do what was done to John Lennon to him. He is very well known, and there are real crazy people out there.
Do you ever get to feel that you are a prisoner of his success?
Oh, sure.
Just a few.
But Stephen doesn't feel that way.
I've been waiting a long time for this.
His fans can still get as close as they want.
Give me 5. I've got a fair amount of childishness left in me. The world hasn't whopped all the fun out of Steve King yet. Okay?
Yeah, but Steve King, I'm getting this feeling. Steve King is turning 50.
Almost. I'm 49 and holding, so to speak.
You wear very thick glasses.
Yeah, they're pretty thick.
Yeah, but is your eyesight getting bad?
I do have a retinal problem that's called macular degeneration. Blindness is the ultimate result, but right now I'm fine. I just don't see very well.
As I understand this disorder, the vision that you see straight out gets very weak. Mm-hmm. But you keep your peripheral vision.
Mm-hmm. That's the part I want to keep as a man and as a writer, is what I see out of the corners.
Two-hundredths of a second. A human eye begins to blink. A hummingbird flits its wings once. And a sensor in a door frame tells an airbag in a seat to deploy. Because when it comes to your safety, every 100th of a second counts. The 1997 Lexus LS 400.
People here communicate mind to mind.
Not black to white.
There are no genders.
Not man to woman.
There is no age. Not young to old.
There are no infirmities.
Not short to tall.
Or handsome to homely.
Just thought to thought.
Idea to idea.
Uninfluenced by the rest of it.
There are only minds. Only minds.
What is this place?
What is this place?
Utopia?
No.
No. The internet.
The internet.
The internet.
Where minds, doors, and lives open up.
It's a nice place. There's a place called the internet.
Is this a great time or what?
What? There's a,
60 Minutes, a CBS News magazine, will continue.
You're on.
Impersonating the president
God bless America!
can be a serious crime.
Is this legal?
Oh, yeah, probably. We think so.
Or a whole lot of fun.
Okay, let's get back to work.
Whoa!
Kevin Kline, Sigourney Weaver.
You make a nice president, Dave Kovic.
Dave, CBS Tonight.
Something's cooking at CBS, and the anticipation is growing, so get ready for a reason to celebrate. Join Martha Stewart this week on This Morning, only on CBS. CBS, welcome home.
Think big. Think beautiful. Think big, beautiful cars. On sale right now at Tom Coward Lincoln Mercury. Like a new Lincoln Continental. Discounted $5,000 below dealer's invoice. Wow! Pure luxury for only $29,995. Or lease for only $366 a month. How about a new Lincoln Town Car for just $499 a month? Buy or lease right now and you'll get a free Carnival cruise for 2 to the Bahamas or Mexican Riviera. Think big.
Right now, you can enjoy golf and stay at a ranch-style resort for as little as $135. You can also enjoy tennis, hiking, swimming, fine dining, oh, and horseback riding. It's just a short drive away at Furnace Creek Ranch Resort in California. For added luxury, there's Furnace Creek Inn. Call 619-786-2345.
With Russia sitting on a stockpile of nuclear weapons, the sad state of Russia's military is nothing to gloat about. How bad is it? Christian Amanpour of CNN, on special assignment for 60 Minutes, has the story.
It was one of the two most powerful armies on Earth. The United States spent trillions of dollars to defend itself against it. But now, with the collapse of the Soviet Empire, Russia is saddled with a huge fighting force that it can't afford and doesn't really know what to do with. The army is billions of dollars in debt. Much of its equipment is obsolete, and morale is plummeting. Yet it still has enough nuclear weapons to blast the U.S. off the face of the earth. This is the way we all remember the Russian army, proud, highly trained, and feared around the world. But in Russia today, they're doing more moonlighting than marching. Even top officers are struggling to survive. Maxim has served in army artillery units for 11 years. He's a captain, supposedly part of the military elite. These days, though, he's forced to take a second job. At night, he loads boxes of food at the St. Petersburg train station. His military pay, $150 a month, is 3 months late. Maxim lives with his wife Tanya and 2 children in a military dormitory, crammed into a couple of small rooms. The rest of the apartment, the captain and his wife share with 2 other families, 11 people in all. There's only one minuscule bathroom, but there's no real bath, no shower or hot water, and no real future, at least not in the Russian army. Some officers are so broke they sell their blood to buy bread. Maxim didn't sell his blood, but he did sell his army-issue winter coat and boots for $50. Some experts say the situation is so bad that most of the military units across this country are simply not fit for serious combat. They also say that here in Moscow, the top commanders don't know which units they could rely on if they had to go to war. Russia's defense minister himself admits there's a serious military crisis, a near catastrophe, he called it. So we asked the ministry to let us visit a typical army unit. But their idea of typical was the crack Tamanskaya division, based just outside Moscow. And the recruits that you have here, are they the best and the brightest? Are you pleased with... Well, they're hitting their targets anyway. Yet even this showcase unit admits to serious problems. The men are way behind in their pay, hundreds of officers lack proper housing, and they can't replace worn-out equipment. The regiment's deputy commander told us he lost 7 of his fellow officers in the Chechen War. What went wrong? Why was the Russian military so badly beaten, so badly treated, so unprepared?
Провокационный вопрос.
That's a provocative question. In principle, our army is ready. But it just happened that they sent untrained soldiers to Chechnya. So you can't say that our army isn't prepared.
But the problem in Chechnya wasn't just a lack of training. The troops were also woefully under-equipped. Sent to war in the dead of winter, they were forced to forage for everything from food to straw to sleep on. They lacked proper shelter, clothing, and communications gear. Many Russian soldiers actually sold their weapons to the enemy, the Chechen rebels. And the Russian army today is still desperately short of vital spare parts. We were told, for instance, that up to 50% of Russian tanks don't even have batteries. The soldiers have to move batteries from one tank to the next just to get them started. You find the same problems in the other services. In the Navy, housing is in such short supply that in some ports, like Baltisk, the sailors and their families are living on board their ships. But that's okay, because most ships very rarely go to sea anymore. They don't have the fuel or the spare parts. And the Navy is also so deeply in debt to all its suppliers that power companies have been cutting off electricity, even to some of its nuclear submarine bases. According to Alexei Arbatov, deputy chairman of the Parliament's Defense Committee, without electrical heat to stop the reactors freezing in winter, the submarines could become floating Chernobyls.
And if it does freeze, what is the worst that could happen?
Well, the tubes which contain the radioactive liquid in the reactor may burst open, and then you have enormous pollution by radioactive waste.
Is that a real risk today?
It is a risk. You may face a real nuclear accident.
As for the Air Force, it's also broke. This colonel is a 30-year veteran. He was once a proud fighter pilot, but now he has to moonlight as a cab driver. The military hasn't paid him for 5 months.
You know, the Defense Ministry has said that it is illegal for officers to have a job out of the military.
Да, это запрещено министром обороны.
Yes, it is prohibited by the defense minister, but the minister isn't feeding my family. I have to do that.
The military can't even afford to train its pilots. Some get as little as 10 hours a year of flying time, a fraction of what they need. 30% of the casualties in Chechnya came from friendly fire, because Air Force and helicopter pilots were regularly bombing and strafing their own troops. Military service used to be a badge of honor, and young Russians flocked to the recruiting stations. But now, almost 90% of those called up are dodging the draft. But the recruiters we met were reluctant to admit the Army's problems.
If most of your best and your brightest young men are trying to dodge the draft, what kind of an army do you think the Russians can field?
Those who come here, they will serve, and serve well. What you say about the Russian army falling to pieces doesn't make sense. After all, we have a history of victories. We beat the Tartars, we beat Napoleon, we beat Hitler.
But your own officials, your own Ministry of Defense, are saying that the Russian army is falling apart now. Do you agree that the military is falling apart?
No.
But military units are short by about 1/3 the necessary manpower. And many of those who do wind up in the military are dropouts, drug addicts, and petty criminals, which has led to another serious problem. Reports of brutality within the ranks are horrifying. Many of the victims and their parents seek help at the Committee of Soldiers' Mothers, organizations which are springing up across the country to protest what's going on. Pasha told us he was repeatedly beaten by older soldiers, at one time hit so severely in his genitals that he had to be hospitalized, and he said he had volunteered to serve in the military.
But when I arrived in the army, I became convinced that we really didn't have an army.
His mother told us she couldn't believe what's happened to the military.
It is something incredible. We go to visit him on Sundays. All the soldiers are drunk. What kind of army is that?
The uncle of another recruit told us his nephew had also been beaten and then deserted.
He said he'd rather commit suicide than be sent back there. Even if they shoot me, I won't let him go back. I am ready to go to his commander and spit in his face, but I won't give them my nephew.
You hear the same stories all over Russia.
I had heard about a soldier who had been thrown under a train.
But by one of these senior guys in your unit?
Yes, without question.
So instead of telling his commander, Alexei deserted his unit and went home.
When my son got a letter from headquarters ordering him to come back, he was so desperate that he decided to commit suicide. It was just lucky that I returned home later that day, and I literally pulled his head out of the noose. He spent 2 days in a coma in the hospital.
In fact, last year, according to the military itself, more than 500 Russian soldiers committed suicide. But it's not just the brutality that's driving the men from the military. Others are fleeing because of hunger. The military simply can't afford to properly feed its men, and many Russian soldiers have to pick cabbages and raise pigs. Even so, there's malnutrition. Around Moscow, you can see more and more soldiers actually begging in the streets, like Sasha, a young conscript who's been working on a military construction unit. They're supposed to be building facilities for the state. Instead, they've been building apartments for new, rich Russians. Sasha's military salary, when it's paid, is $4 a month. Can you buy anything with that? What can you buy?
2 packets of cigarettes and a package of cookies. That's all. I have nothing to live on.
How does it make you feel to have to beg?
I feel ashamed. Really bad.
And in Russia's Far East, some sailors even starve to death. How could that happen?
The unit is not supplied with enough food, so stronger, older soldiers take the food from younger soldiers. Those of younger soldiers who are in particularly vulnerable or weak might find themselves really starving to death.
It's the law of the jungle.
Yes, very much so.
If the army is disintegrating, how much of a threat does that pose to Russia?
It's an enormous threat. It's probably the largest threat to our national security at present time.
It's not just Russia's security that's threatened, but potentially the security of the whole world. For Russia is still very much a nuclear superpower. And though its military may be coming apart at the seams, it is still armed with more than 20,000 nuclear warheads.
Advertising doesn't work.